At last the flagship dropped anchor outside Roanoke's shallow harbor. White and 40 of his men planned to take the pinnace to shore to meet with soldiers, then continue on to Chesapeake, where they were going to stay. But the ship's pilot, Simon Fernandez, had other ideas. He refused to take the colonists any farther and put them all ashore at Roanoke. When White and his men got to the fort ahead of the larger group of colonists, they found it razed. Great melon vines grew in what remained of the houses. Deer grazed there. All that was left of the soldiers was a single skeleton. "We must make the best of what we have," said White, so they began to repair the houses. The coastline that the colonists sailed along is made up of dangerous inlets and coves. A ship coming upon the shore first encounters barrier islands parallel to the coastline, then the mainland itself. At the bottom of these waters, sometimes called the graveyard of the Atlantic, hundreds of ships and boats lie wrecked. While work continued on the buildings, one man, George Howe, went fishing alone. Stripping off his clothes, he waded into shallow water, trying to catch crabs with a small forked stick. When he did not return, the others searched for him. They found him dead, riddled with arrows. The colonists suspected Indians had killed him. White sent Manteo and 20 men to Croatoan Island, where the nearest native people lived. They approached the village with drawn muskets, which frightened the peaceful Croatoans, until they saw Manteo, who translated their story. Four soldiers were in a boat fishing. 30 of our enemies from several other tribes surrounded the soldiers at the fort. Men on both sides were killed. The soldiers who were not hurt ran to the boat and rowed away. We never saw them again. George Howe was killed by the same people. The Croatoans then pleaded for a token by which the English would know them as friends. No token was given. One Indian, a man named Juanchez, who had himself visited England and was known by the soldiers, was part of a plot to starve the soldiers out. Later, he led his people against the colonists, killing George Howe. Later that week, the English mounted a surprise attack in the middle of the night on the people they thought had killed Howe. Spying a campfire, they shot one man and chased the others through the reeds, including women and children. But the colonists had made a terrible mistake. These were the friendly Croatoans, who, knowing their enemies had left the area, had come to gather up peas, corn, pumpkin, tobacco. As a reward for faithful service, the English christened Manteo a few days later, calling him Lord of Roanoke and Desmonkeypeuc. They thought that this would make him a better friend to the English and a loyal subject of Queen Elizabeth. What Manteo thought of the ceremony is unknown. A christening is a ceremony in which an individual is admitted into the Christian church by baptism. During the ceremony, a name can be given to a child or a title to an older individual. On August 18th, White's daughter, Eleanor, gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America. This was cause for great celebration, but summer was drawing to a close, and the colonists started to worry. They were quickly running out of supplies. No one knew they were on Roanoke Island. They were supposed to be in Chesapeake, 50 miles to the north. Should they move there? Should they send someone back to England to let Raleigh know of their plight? White has pressured White was pressured to go. He hated leaving his daughter and new grandchild, but the colonists were convinced he was the best man for the job. So he buried his notebooks, drawings, map, and armor and worked out a special code with the colonists. If you leave, carve your destination on a tree. Put a cross if there has been trouble. 9 days later, on August 27th, White set sail for England. White buried his most prized possessions because other times when he left for several days on scouting or drawing trips, many of his supplies had been used by others. He was taking no chances. White left Roanoke in a storm, an awful crossing, desperate to get to England, desperate to round up supplies, desperate to return quickly to Roanoke colony. But politics, war, and the Spanish Armada all conspired to keep him in England. There was nothing he could do. Half a year later, in the spring, White tried to sail with two small ships filled with sailors, 15 new colonists, and supplies, but the sailors insisted on privateering along the way. They attacked not only Spanish ships, but a Scottish boat and a French ship as well. White was wounded twice in hand to hand combat. All of the colonists' supplies were stolen. They limped back to England. The Spanish Armada was a fleet of 130 heavy galleons or warships, and 30,000 men. It was thought to be unbeatable. Spain tried to invade England in 1588, but the English ships were smaller, faster, and easier to maneuver in the channel between England and the European continent. Plus, England had controlled all of the ports. The Armada was eventually crushed entirely by the English. It was March 20th, 1590, before Raleigh could gather enough money to send any other ships. 5 months later, having survived storms and more fights, the ships anchored at the top of Croatoan Island. Finally, they moved on to the outer islands, even though it was evening. White and his men could see smoke rising from the vicinity of the Roanoke fort. In the morning, they tried to row ashore in two small boats through terrible waves. One boat capsized, 7 men drowned.